Number 10. Pavagoli Island, Italy. Pavagoli is one of the scariest haunted islands in Europe. A series of mysterious activities were detected on the island, and that is probably the main reason why the island is closed for visitors today. The island was the place where victims of the plague were quarantined and infected dead bodies were disposed of. It is said the remains of over 100,000 souls are buried there, and let me just say, that is a lot. The island was later the site of a nursing home and psychiatric hospital. Now it's rumored that it had a mad doctor who carried out unconventional treatments on his patients here before eventually throwing himself from the church's bell tower or being pushed, whichever you believe. Due to this, the bell was later removed, but people from the surrounding islands claim to have heard it echoing in the night on multiple occasions. The hospital eventually closed and the island was abandoned in 1968. Number 9. Hellfire Club, Ireland. No, not the Hellfire Club you're thinking of. This has nothing to do with Stranger Things, unfortunately, and let me just throw in, Eddie deserved better. Anyway, the Hellfire in Dublin was built as a hunting lodge where Dublin elites used to gather in the 1700s. The ruins of the club are located on top of Montpelier Hill overlooking the adjacent Massey Woods. There have been numerous stories about black masses, animals, and even human sacrifice rituals happening in the Hellfire Club, but that's not all. Multiple witnesses claim to have seen a satanic-like creature with a human appearance and cloven feet. So, literally, the devil. You mean the devil. Another common visitor is the ghost of a young lady who is believed to have been burned inside a barrel and rolled down the hill. Number 8. Pripyat, Ukraine. Pripyat is a small town in northern Ukraine that was the closest town to the notorious Chernobyl power plant. Once upon a time, Pripyat was a nice little town that was home to 50,000 people. However, after the Chernobyl disaster, everything changed. Needless to say, no one lives here today, and it's dangerous to visit even after all these years after the explosion. Now, there are many ghost stories surrounding Pripyat. One story is that one of the nuclear physicists was measuring the radiation readings when he heard someone screaming inside the plant. This event happened in 1997, 11 years after the explosion. He asked the employees about it, and they told him that he was the first one to enter the control room in 11 years, and that the only way to get in was through a thick metal door. Now, even if someone did come inside, they would inevitably trigger an alarm that goes off. Even more interestingly, later that evening, the employees saw a floodlight turning on in the installation room. They thought there may have been a power surge, but seconds later the lights were turned off. Spooky. Number 7. Castle Ryzel, Poland. This red structure looming over Ryzel has had a horrifying dark past. The town was burnt down in the 1800s, and a woman named Barbara Zedunk was arrested for committing arson and was later accused of witchcraft. In the castle, she was tortured and taken advantage of on multiple occasions and eventually gave birth to 2 children. Many people claim that the ghost of Barbara and her children haunt the castle today, and rightfully so. A strange smell of perfume was reported in the castle on multiple occasions. Doors that were previously locked were found open the next morning, and some people even claim that they were touched by a strange force in the castle. Number 6. Witch's Castle, Austria. Witch's Castle, also known as Musham Castle, has a gruesome history. Hundreds of people were imprisoned, tortured, and had their lives ended inside these walls during the witch hunts of 1675 and 1690. Those who did escape the hangings had their hands cut off, while others were branded by hot irons. Now, after the witch hunting was over, they went back to normal. But then came another issue: werewolves. In the 1800s, many cattle and deer were found dead near the castle. So these people jumped to the logical conclusion that this was being done by werewolves. This led to some residents being tried and executed in the castle's dungeons as the full moon culprits. Staff and visitors swear they have felt someone's breath on them, been touched, heard banging sounds, footsteps, and doors slamming, and there's also been rumors of people hearing the sounds of the witches screaming, and werewolves apparently still prowl the grounds. Number 5. The Houska Castle, Czech Republic. The Houska Castle is located in a forest north of Prague and is one of the most haunted places in the world. According to the legend, on this exact spot, there was a huge hole in the ground which was considered to be the gateway to hell. Nice. Paranormal activities were disturbing the region, and the Bohemians thought they would solve their problems if they covered the hole, which honestly sounds like a good idea. That's why they built the castle. Now, no one actually wanted to build this castle and get close to this portal, so they used prisoners to help. Hundreds of prisoners were forced to go into the pit to build the foundation for the castle. However, when they were taken out of the hole, they looked like old men. Later on, this castle was the center of a German occult dabbling during World War II, and multiple dead bodies of German soldiers were found on the site. Witnesses reported several different forms of paranormal activities, and some even claimed that the site contains the remains of a demonic beast who escaped the pit. Yeah, no thank you, I'm good. Number 4. Dracula's Castle in Bran, Romania. Bran Castle is a castle in Romania that is a national monument and landmark in Transylvania. It's commonly known outside Transylvania as Dracula's Castle because it's the only castle in all of Transylvania that actually fits Bram Stoker's description of Dracula's castle, even though he never visited Romania. Many historians agree that Vlad III, Dracula, never set foot in Castle Bran, which was neither a friendly place for him to visit nor under his rule. Nonetheless, the castle is still creepy. The castle has 57 rooms and, of course, a secret passage. While being beautiful during the day, the castle takes on a whole other look at night. In the villages near Bran, there is a belief of the existence of evil spirits called ghosts or stigoi. Until half a century ago, it was believed that there existed certain living people who were leading normal life during the day, but during their sleep at midnight, their souls left their bodies and haunted the village, tormenting people in their sleep. So yeah, I'd stay away from this castle at midnight. Number 3. The Edinburgh Vaults, Scotland. The Edinburgh Vaults are a series of chambers formed in the 19 arches of the South Bridge in Edinburgh. They were a part of the South Bridge Act 1785 and was completed in 1788. For around 30 years, the vaults were used to house taverns, workshops for cobblers and other tradesmen, as well as storage space for said merchants. In later years, the vaults were a hotspot for the homeless and for criminal activity such as illegal gambling taverns, illegal whiskey distillery, and body snatchers stored corpses there overnight. In the late 19th century, the vaults were closed off, but opened again in 1988 when a local man crawled through a narrow passageway in one of his buildings and rediscovered the rooms underneath the bridge. Witnesses claim they can feel cold gusts of air, to hear voices, and see and sense an intangible presence. Now, some ghosts are bolder there, like Jack, who grabs visitors' hands in the wine vault. Another, more menacing presence is known as Mr. Boots, an unkept man so named for his tall boots. Now, Mr. Boots lurks in the back section of the vault and has been known to push and throw rocks at visitors. Some have claimed to hear his footsteps on the cobbles and his echoing voice cursing throughout the chambers. Number 2. The Old Vicarage, Sweden. Borgvattna is a small village in northern Sweden. It only has 50 residents, a church, and a vicarage. That old vicarage is extremely haunted, perhaps the most haunted place in Sweden. In 1930, the owner saw a lady dressed in gray at the house. She was walking slowly towards him through the big hall, but decided to take a turn into the expedition room, the office where the vicars used to work. He wanted to talk to her, ask her what she was doing inside his house, but when he got to the expedition room, there was no one there. A couple moved in 1936 and they heard footsteps walking through the house and doors were opening and closing as if someone was moving from one room to another. When they wanted to welcome the visitor, they saw nobody. The wife was home alone one day when she heard music coming from there behind a closed door. She opened the kitchen door and the music suddenly stopped. The same thing happened later when her husband was back home. Then in 1945, another man moved in and he brought a rocking chair. One night when he read a book in it, he was pushed off the chair so violently that he fell to the ground. When he tried again, it was as if he was blocked from it and he fell again. Then the rocking chair also started moving on its own. Now, each room has its own little story, with guests reporting seeing shadows, hearing furniture move, and much, much more. And coming in at number 1 is Dragslund Castle, Denmark. This 13th century castle was built by former bishop of Roskilde and has been leveled by invading Swedish armies and rebuilt several times. During the Reformation, the castle was seized by the Danish king, who laid claim to all church properties. The bishop was imprisoned in the castle and left to die. Guests claimed to hear moaning and wailing in the area of the castle's prison cells. Another lingering prisoner still haunts the grounds, the Earl of Bothwell, husband of Queen Mary of Scots. He was captured in Norway, imprisoned, and tortured to death in the castle. It's said that his spirit appears in the courtyard riding a horse-drawn carriage. Two female ghosts also haunt the castle, a lady in white and a lady in grey. The first is the ghost of a nobleman's daughter who fell in love with a castle worker. Her father forbade the relationship and ended her life for not obeying his demands. He chained her to a post in the castle cellar and built a brick wall around her. A skeleton was found when the castle was modernized, lending truth to the legend. The second ghost is an old woman who died after castle doctors removed an infected tooth. While it relieved her pain, the extraction was infected, causing her death.
And we're kicking off this list with the Scandinavian Ganganger. Ganganger, that's a hard word to say. Might be mispronouncing it. Originating in the folklore of Scandinavia, particularly Norway and Sweden, the Ganganger is believed to be the embodiment of a deceased individual who returns from the grave to haunt the living. These spectral beings typically manifest with a pale complexion, dressed in tattered burial garments. They're often associated with unfinished business or unresolved grievances, seeking retribution or closure. It kind of sounds like a normal ghost, but they actually are very, very different. Legend has it that encountering one of these beings brings great misfortune and even death to those who cross its path. Instead of just appearing in the background of photographs or whispering incoherent sentences into spirit boxes like your regular old vanilla ghosts, the Ganganger are malicious spirits that can actually cause physical harm. The mere sight of these spectral beings is said to invoke a profound sense of dread and foreboding, as they are believed to possess this malevolent intent, even towards loved ones. Efforts to ward off or appease one of these beings have been present in Scandinavian folklore for centuries. Traditional rituals like offering prayers, performing protective charms, or conducting burial rites were believed to provide some defense against their haunting presence. At number 9, we have A Letter from a Blind Man. This one is short, but man, is it chilling. A dark tale that began circulating just after one of the darkest periods in modern history. In post-World War II in Berlin, a time plagued by scarcity, poverty, and hunger, a tale spoke of a young woman who encountered a blind man navigating his way through a bustling crowd. The two ended up striking a conversation, leading the man to ask if she could deliver a letter to the specified address on the envelope for him. Considering it was conveniently on her route home, she agreed to help. As she turned to walk away, though, she craned her head back momentarily to see if there was anything else she could assist the blind man with, and to her astonishment, she caught sight of him hastily making his way through the crowd without his dark glasses or his white cane. Understandably, she was pretty suspicious at this point and headed over to report the incident to the authorities. The police swiftly raided the address mentioned in the letter, where they uncovered a gruesome discovery. In the home were piles of human flesh intended for sale, and within the envelope entrusted to the young woman was a chilling message that read, "This is the last one I'm sending you today." The Beast of Gevaudan, terrifying creature's tale, has become a blend of fact, fiction, and folklore. The legend speaks of a monstrous beast that haunted the rural landscape of Gevaudan, a region in south-central France, during the mid-18th century. According to the stories, the creature possessed an insatiable appetite for human flesh, targeting women and children as its preferred victims. Descriptions varied, but many accounts depicted a fearsome creature resembling a massive-sized wolf or a hybrid predator, possibly with blood-red eyes and a black stripe running down its back. Its ruthless attacks, coupled with its supposed invincibility against conventional weaponry, left the people in a state of dread, desperation, and as the legend grew, so did the attempts to bring an end to the creature's reign of terror. Countless hunters, soldiers, and villagers embarked on these journeys to track down and take out the beast, yet the creature thwarted their efforts time and time again, evading traps, bullets, and even organized hunts. The legend reached its climax when a local hunter named Jean Chastel claimed to have slain the beast using a silver bullet. Over the years, legend of the beast of Gavaudan has been dissected by historians, mythologists, and enthusiasts, giving rise to various theories about the true nature of the creature. And apparently this did happen, it's just we're not quite sure if it was some sort of paranormal creature, like a werewolf, or if it was just a particularly large rogue wolf. Number 7, the Well to Hell. The Well to Hell urban legend was spread through whispers, emails, and internet forums. According to the legend, in 1989, a team of Russian scientists drilled a hole deep in an unknown location in Siberia, and as they delved deeper into the Earth's crust, they allegedly pierced a barrier that unleashed unimaginable horrors. The story goes that as the drill reached an astonishing depth, the temperature spiked dramatically and strange sounds began emanating from the hole. The team lowered a heat-tolerant microphone down into the hole, and disturbingly, the team claimed to have detected agonizing screams of tormented souls and eerie demonic voices rising from the depths. Terrified, they quickly withdrew the drill, fearing that they had inadvertently opened a gateway to hell itself. There is an audio recording of this supposed hellish audio, and spoiler alert, it's been ruled as a hoax. However, it is pretty unsettling to listen to. I remember hearing this years and years ago when I was a kid, and it kind of freaked me out. Next on the list, we have The Faceless Woman. This story takes place in the London Underground at Beacon Tree Station. The story goes that a station supervisor was working the late shift, minding his own business, when the door to his office started to shake. First, he just brushed it off, thinking it was just the rumble of passing trains on other lines, but when the door didn't stop rattling, even into the wee hours of the morning when no more trains were running, the worker decided probably time to leave. He headed up to the upper office where his coworker was stationed, and as he was making his way up the staircase, he just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Someone was trailing behind him. He turned around and was greeted by a disturbing sight. A woman stood below him with long blonde hair and without a face, standing just a few feet away. He suddenly dashed up the stairs in a panic before finally finding safety in the top office. Once there, a colleague could see the fear in his face before asking him, "Did you see a woman with long blonde hair and no face?" Next up is the Vanishing Hotel Room, aka the Vanishing Lady. This legend began circulating in the late 1800s, taking place in France. Like with most urban legends, there are multiple versions of the tale, but it goes something like this. A mother and daughter had recently arrived in Paris. They check into a hotel, but pretty soon the mother begins feeling ill, collapses. A doctor arrives who informs the daughter that her mother will need medicine. That can only be picked up at the other end of town. The daughter sets out to get the medicine, but when she returns to the hotel hours later, her mother is no longer there. In a panic, she asks the staff where her mother is, but they all claim not to know who she's talking about. According to them, the girl had arrived at the hotel on her own. In some versions of the story, the girl suffers a mental breakdown and ends up at a mental institution. In another version of the legend, it is revealed that the mother had actually died of the Black Plague, and the hotel tried to cover it up by disposing of her body and pretending like they'd never seen her in order to avoid bad publicity. At number 4, we have the Russian sleep experiment. This story began circulating online, and according to the chilling tale, in 1947, Soviet researchers conducted a classified experiment in which 5 subjects were kept awake for an extended period of time. The goal was to test the effects of sleep deprivation on human physiology and their mental state. Days turned into weeks, however. The subjects began to exhibit disturbing behavior. They became increasingly increasingly paranoid and delusional, plagued by hallucinations and exhibiting signs of extreme psychological distress. Desperate attempts to stay awake led to self-mutilation as they tore into their own flesh, driven to madness by their sleep-deprived states. The most horrifying twist and the legend comes when the researchers decided to release a gas into the chamber in order to induce sleep. However, instead of providing relief, the gas triggered a nightmarish frenzy of violence. The researchers entered the room only to find one man still standing. The bodies of the other 4 men, or at least what remained of them, lay strewn about the room. Next, we have another urban legend from the London Underground, the Crying Girl of King's Cross Station. In 1987, deep underground in the tunnels of the London subway at King's Cross Station, a fire had broken out. The fire took the lives of 31 people, and some say they still hear the wails and cries of the poor souls who lost their lives there, especially the crying woman. Late at night, when the platform is mostly deserted, some say they spot a woman dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, sobbing into the night, the echoes of her cries reverberating off the long, empty tunnels. When they go to approach her, though, she simply disappears. Coming in at number 2, we have the Black Volga. The urban legend of the Black Volga is a chilling tale that is circulated in various parts of the world, but particularly in Eastern Europe. According to the legend, a menacing black luxury car, often identified as a Volga sedan, prowls the streets at night, instilling fear in all who cross its path. The Black Volga is said to be driven by mysterious figures, frequently described as malevolent entities or agents of the supernatural. Witnesses claim that the vehicle appears seemingly out of nowhere, its engine roaring ominously as it glides silently through the darkness. The car's windows are tinted, hiding the occupants from view and shrouding their intentions in secrecy. Terrifying encounters with the Black Volga involve tales of kidnappings, disappearances, or even encounters with supernatural beings. Some versions of the legend suggest that the car is driven by vampires or other supernatural creatures preying on unsuspecting victims in the dead of night. Some have actually theorized that perhaps the Polish secret police spread these more outlandish legends in order to invalidate claims of genuine kidnappings carried out by the government. And at number 1, we have the Catacombs video. Now, this video really does exist. It's just the person behind the camera who's never been identified, which has led to multiple theories about the circumstances of this case. Is it just a hoax, or was this actually a man who got lost in the catacombs, never to be seen again? This is one most of you have probably heard of, but it's a story that's always stuck with me. One that chilled me to the bone when I first heard about it and watched footage. The video is said to have been filmed in the early 90s, possibly 1993. In the black and white footage, we see a POV of the cameraman as he makes his way through the dark tunnels of the Paris catacombs. Soon, though, his breathing begins to intensify and he picks up his pace, now running aimlessly through the tunnels until he finally drops his camera altogether. Continuing to run further into the darkness, the camera continues to record until the battery dies. The camera was found later on, and searches were made for this mysterious man, but no body was ever discovered.
Starting off this countdown, we have the secret underground community. Believe it or not, but there is a group of urban explorers that like to hang out in the Paris catacombs. They call themselves the Cataphiles, and they sneak into the tunnels, evade the police, and then go exploring. In fact, they have claimed a number of sections as their own, marking it with murals and graffiti. Not only that, but they have found secret ways to get into the catacombs. Plus, they've started mapping the whole place out so that other explorers don't get lost. Only problem is that this is a very dangerous hobby. Since they are entering restricted areas in the catacombs, they have to watch out for crumbling walls, falling rocks, even pools of water. I don't know about you, but I prefer to spend my time with the living and not the dead. In our 9th spot, we have the Lost Girl. In 2005, a group of teens illegally snuck into the catacombs on New Year's. Sadly, they all didn't make it out alive. They all were drinking and having a blast when one of their friends, Masha, wandered off alone. When they finally realized she had disappeared, they went out looking for her but couldn't find her. No one knew what happened to her until 4 months later. That's when a group of boys were exploring the catacombs when they stumbled upon her frozen body. Since she was drunk, she wandered off to another section of the catacombs and then got lost and froze to death. How heartbreaking. Coming in at number 8, we have Philibert Aspel. Philibert Aspel was a doorkeeper at the Val de Grace Hospital during the French Revolution. And the hotel actually had a staircase located in the courtyard that would lead to the catacombs. So one night in November of 1793, Philibert descended into the catacombs to retrieve a bottle of liquor stored down there. However, he only brought one candle with him and it was not enough to light the way. Eventually it blew out and he was down there in pitch black. Being semi-intoxicated, he stumbled around the catacombs lost. For 11 years, no one knew what happened to him. That was until 1804 when his body was found. He was identified by the hospital keyring hanging from his belt. Moving on to number 7, we have the Whispering Walls. A number of explorers have claimed that no one should ever be in the Paris catacombs after midnight. For if you are, then the walls will begin to speak. People have claimed to have heard disembodied voices coming from the catacombs. These voices confuse them and try to persuade them to travel deeper and deeper into the catacombs until you're in too far that you're lost and you can't escape. Actually, fun fact, they use this as inspiration for the movie As Above, So Below, which takes place in the Paris catacombs. In our 6th spot today, we have the camera system. In 2004, a group of French police explored some of the restricted areas of the Paris catacombs. And that's when they discovered something truly terrifying. First, they found a PA system that when triggered would play sounds of guard dogs barking. Then they found a full-on bar, living area, workshop, lounge, and cinema with space to fit 20 people. Like what? Not only that, but whoever created this little home setup was stealing other people's electricity from above. The creepiest part is that they had a full-on security camera set up, and the police soon realized that they were being watched. They left to get a bigger team to further investigate the area, but by the time they got back, everything was gone. The only thing left was a note that read, "Don't search." We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with De Quille. De Quille is the name of a very mysterious man. We don't know much about him, but we do know that he was a veteran of the French army, and he was also an artist. In fact, he created a number of sculptures for the catacombs. However, this eventually led to his death. During the construction of one of his sculptures, a part of it fell and crushed him completely. It's said that to this day, his soul wanders the catacombs. In fact, people have seen him down there before. In our 4th spot today, we have the Crypt of Passions. The Crypt of Passions, located in the ossuary, is a pillar that is covered in skulls to the point that it's just completely concealed. The skulls end up forming what looks like a barrel, which is creepy for a number of reasons. Just take in, those are real skulls. You're surrounded by people who used to be living, and most of them died in tragic ways, and then their bones were used for an art display. A number of people who have visited this area in the catacombs have reported feeling very uneasy around the Crypt of Passion. It's believed that some of the souls that were placed there have not found peace. I mean, in some cultures, they believe that a proper burial must be done with a tomb marker, or else the soul will never be able to rest or go to the afterlife. However, that was not possible at the time. The catacombs were built because grave overcrowding was a serious issue back then, among other things. In our 3rd spot today, we have the scratch marks. There's this really creepy area in the Paris catacombs where it's just a wall of scratches. Like, it looks as if bodies rose from the dead and tried to scratch their way out. It's a creepy touch to the place, that's for sure. Moving on to number 2, we have the lost tape. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard about this urban legend before, and in fact it also inspired the movie As Above, So Below. And it might not even be a legend, it might be real, but to this day, no one knows. Once upon a time, in 1990, a weird dusty camcorder was discovered in the catacombs. The camera appeared to have been there for quite some time, so they decided to inspect it. What was found on it was very disturbing. The video was of an unidentified male explorer wandering around the catacombs. While down there, we see him interacting with the skulls around him. But then something spooks the man and he ends up growing paranoid and panicked. At one point, he drops the camera and just runs away. Sadly, he never made it out alive. This tape contains the final moments of his life. And in our number 1 spot today we have the criminals. In 2017, it was discovered that a group of robbers used the catacombs to break into an apartment. Basically, they figured out that the catacombs were right under an apartment vault. So they drilled their way in through the limestone and entered the apartment to steal over 300 bottles of vintage wine. In total, they valued at close to 250,000 euros. Isn't that insane? Starting off this countdown, we have the clowns.
Well, now to a disturbing trend that began in the U.S. and has crossed the Atlantic. Clowns armed with weapons instead of balloons have popped up here in France.
So back in 2014, all around France, there were a number of real-life clown sightings. People were dressing up as clowns and walking around with real-life weapons. Take a look.
In France earlier this month, in one incident, car passengers had the fright of their lives.
These clowns were literally chasing people around with axes and bats. Even if you were in a car, you weren't safe. They would literally run up to your car and taunt you and chase you. Thankfully, I believe the clown shown in the video was arrested, and honestly, probably had a really creepy mugshot. But damn, can you imagine being out for a late night stroll and seeing one of those clowns coming at you? Yeah, I don't know what I would do besides scream and cry. In our 9th spot, we have the Bigfoot, and here's just your little friendly reminder to hit that thumbs up button, because it really helps us out. So this video was posted on YouTube and apparently captured a real-life Bigfoot in Eastern Europe.
Серега, что это? Серега, да ну, Серега. Серега, ну.
Clearly, this man is creeped out by whatever it is that he saw. Honestly, I can't tell what it is. It does look like it could be Bigfoot, but as we all know by now, Bigfoot is way stealthier than that, so who knows, maybe it's his brother. In our 8th spot, we have the ammunition site. So YouTuber Ghost Warriors uploaded a video onto his channel showing him in a real-life ammunition site that was left over from World War II in Germany. We follow along with him as he tours this creepy and dilapidated building. Throughout the video, he tries to make contact with ghosts, asking them to say something, make a noise, or anything to show that they are there. He does this multiple times while he explores, but sadly, we get nothing. That was until he made his way over to a dark area with dripping water. As his camera focuses in on the darkness, you can literally see a silhouette of a girl in a white dress or something. Did you guys see that ghostly shadow? It's fairly creepy. And why is this girl haunting this building? In our 7th spot, we have the haunted bookstore. This video was posted on YouTube by the user Nicola's Post. The description box reads as so: at the end of May 2010, my bookstore's alarm stroked twice within a week. Something really strange. As the only time it was activated in the past was because the store was robbed. So I decided to check the CCTV, and he caught some ghostly activity on camera. At first, everything appears to be normal. It's just a normal bookstore, nothing out of the ordinary. Then he pans into one of the security cameras, and that's when you literally see a book levitate from the table before dropping again. Could it be that this is real paranormal activity caught on camera? Or did he fake it as a good promo for his bookshop? Honestly, maybe the ghost just likes to read. Let him be. Like, he's a well-educated ghost, and I respect that. Coming in at number 6, we have Jack. Jack is a very weird and cryptic YouTube video posted on the channel AETBX back in 2017. The video was titled as Jack and just features a bunch of weird clips of scary locations with a high-pitched noise in the background. It's super weird, but also very unnerving. This channel is known for posting very cryptic messages, and people are determined to find out what the meaning of this video is. One popular theory is that the video points to the location where someone named Jack is buried. Maybe this dude is a killer, and Jack is the name of his victim. He then is taunting us, giving us hints as to where to find Jack. That is absolutely terrifying. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with PET. Here's another fairly creepy and cryptic video. It was uploaded to a YouTube channel named Monstrum Circus just last year. The title of the video and the video's description are both in binary code. Thankfully, I'm smart and I cracked the code. The title of the video was then revealed as PET. The description box reads as follows: PET, upload for staff, smiley face. But staff get upset, sad face. Now I have no clue what that means. Here, take a look at the video itself. I think what's so disturbing about it is that we have no clue what this cryptic video means. Clearly, they are teasing at something. I personally need to know what PET stands for, and then I think I'm one step closer to cracking this case. Moving on to number 4, we have the sudden storm. This next video just proves to us how little we truly are. I mean, we live in this great big world. Mother Nature is such a strong force. It could wipe us out at any given second, as shown in this video. So these videos were taken in the Greek islands back in 2019. It was a normal nice day when all of a sudden a storm came out of nowhere. Look at that freaking lightning. That is intense. The storm was so strong that it ripped apart the beach town. Sadly, 7 people passed away from that storm. No one was prepared for how severe it was. And at number 3, we have the band commercial. Okay, honestly, the UK has some pretty messed up, creepy commercials, like this one.
Kinder, you shaky. Me unscrabbly.
This one is for Kinder Surprise. Honestly, I love that chocolate, but what were they thinking for this commercial? So this aired in 1989 and features a very creepy human-like Humpty Dumpty showing off his Kinder Surprise.
Yodel yum and choco scrum with multi-pop dice. Oh, grubbly. Me scrubble.
It's absolutely terrifying. Like, why couldn't he have been a normal white egg, not this weird human egg? Also, the fact that he is speaking in gibberish makes it that much more terrifying. In fact, rumor has it that this commercial was banned because it upset too many viewers. I mean, it was banned in the US for a fact, but that's just because Kinder Surprises are banned there, because the toy inside is considered a choking hazard. But also, apparently if you reverse this dude's gibberish, it sounds like someone screaming for help. So a lot of people are frightened by this commercial, and rightfully so. In our second spot, we have the drunk driving campaign. This has to be one of the most terrifying campaigns / PSAs out there. So it was designed by the Leo Burnett ad agency, and it was meant to scare people away from drinking and driving, which I'm sure this video did. Take a look. So basically, a bunch of men go into a bar's bathroom to wash their hands, and while doing so, this bloody mannequin head just breaks through the mirror. Like as if he was the driver and he hit this woman and, you know, that was the face you would see in your windshield. That is horrifying. At the end of the video, it says, what impact could a drink have on your night out? Think, don't drink and drive. And I'm sure it scared those men and many more from ever thinking of driving while intoxicated. And in our number 1 spot, we have The Guest. Now this video is actually a horror short film written and directed by a man named Finn Catalan. And honestly, it's horrifying and incredible at the exact same time. Basically, it's a 12-minute short about a woman named Mary who is haunted by this creature. Like, look at that creature. The video then goes on to show Mary harm herself in an attempt to get away from this monster. She stabs a knife in her ears and pours bleach in her eyes. It's a very dark but well done short film. Highly recommend giving it a watch, but viewer discretion is advised.
Let's kick off this list, number 10, with a domovoi. These creatures are said to protect your home, only if you keep them happy. Over in Russia, it is common belief that every house has a domovoi. These are very small tall, hairy, ugly creatures that are rarely seen, but they're usually living behind your stove or in dark areas. If you treat these creatures with respect, leave them treats, and say nice things about them, they're going to protect your house. But if you ignore them, leave your house in a mess, or constantly fight with your family, then they will destroy your house or strangle you in your sleep. I don't know about you guys, but if I had a house in Russia, I would keep it the cleanest damn thing ever. So make sure you guys in Russia watching right now, go clean your house. The Greek soldier marches into number 9 on this creepy list. This creepy urban legend originates in Greece, and it is about a Greek soldier from World War II who was captured, tortured, and brutally executed by other Greeks who disapproved of his political beliefs. He was tortured for 5 weeks, and then he was eventually murdered. After his death, stories about a very attractive Greek soldier in uniform would appear and disappear overnight. His goal was to seduce young, beautiful widows or virgins and impregnate them. 5 weeks after the mother gave birth to the baby, he would disappear for good, but he would leave a letter that explained why he disappeared. The letter said that his main goal was to return from the dead in order to spread his seed so that his sons will eventually get vengeance on those who murdered him. I mean, this just sounds so morbid and pretty damn dark. Let's just move on. The hostile urban legend. We're going to be talking about that. It's going to haunt us in at number 8. Have you guys ever seen the movie Hostel? Well, it's about college students who are backpacking through Europe. This is why I'm afraid to backpack. Well, one of their stops was in Amsterdam. They decided to rent a room at a hostel that was known for their partying. Well, they found themselves in a terrible situation full of torture chambers and murderers. So yeah, this movie was inspired by the hostile urban legend in Europe. According to the legend, hundreds of people who backpacked through Europe each year, they would mysteriously just disappear. Some people speculate that they are held in a torture room by a sick and sinister murderer, and others say that they were cut up and had their organs sold for money. A lot of people believe that this urban legend is so true that many of them stay in hotels while in Europe, but I'm starting to think that hotels are the ones that are starting this urban legends to, try to generate more money. The spider bite nibbles onto this list at number 7. This extremely disgusting urban legend surfaced in Europe during the 1970s, but it is still being circulated around the continent even to this day. Basically, this urban legend used people's irrational fear of spiders, and this will discourage them from visiting exotic countries in the south. So this urban legend gave a lot of southern countries a bad reputation that they were either unclean or very unsafe. In the story, a young woman travels to an exotic location for her vacation, but during her trip, her cheeks began to swell, so she decided to cut her trip short and she returned home in order to get some medical treatment. When the doctor examined her cheeks, he inserted something into her cheek that caused a dozen spiders to come out crawling. I mean, is this real life right now? If I saw all those spiders coming out of my cheek, I would probably faint. If not, I hope I would just pass out because there's no way I would be able to handle that situation. According to this legend, a spider had laid eggs under her skin during her vacation, and when the spiders came crawling out, it caused this woman to go insane. Well, can you blame her? I know this is just a story, but it's still pretty scary because you imagine like this could actually happen. The smiley face makes its way onto this list at number 6. Don't be fooled by the name of this urban legend because it isn't a pleasant one. This story was heavily circulated in cities across Belgium in 2002, and it is about a gang or single man who would follow a woman home from the subway and attack her in an abandoned alleyway. The gang or this man would give her a choice. They said that she can either be raped or smile forever. Seems like there's an obvious choice, so the woman easily picked the second option, but it resulted in her mouth being sliced open at the corners all the way up to her ear that it kind of resembles a clown's smile. I mean, this would be incredibly painful. I couldn't imagine that actually happening to someone. I'd really hope this urban legend is just a legend and it's not actually a true story, because this would be a really bad form of torture. The Strigoi bites its way into number 5. Alright, so this urban legend originates in Romania, and I think by that, you'll be able to guess what this urban legend is about. If you guessed vampires, you'd be close. However, the Strigoi are much more intense and hardcore than Dracula will ever be. This urban legend states that the Strigoi are almost like a hybrid between vampires and werewolves. So similar to vampires, they like to stalk the streets at night, but what makes them more powerful is that they're able to shapeshift into any creatures they want. So yeah, basically they're unstoppable. They can also make themselves invisible. Okay, so now that's not even fair. According to one legend, a Romanian girl claimed to have been visited by a strigoi that took the form of her dead uncle. So the family decided not to take any chances, and they actually dug up his grave, cut his heart out, and burned it. Yeah, I'm not sure if those were the steps that I would take, but I would strongly consider it, for sure. The death car crashes onto this list at number 4. This urban legend is famously known in Poland as the Black Volga, and this story originated back in the 1960s and quickly spread throughout Eastern Europe. This legend goes something like this. There is a Black Volga that is driven by evil priests and nuns, black-robed Satanists, vampires, and even the devil who would abduct people, and then they would be sacrificed to evil spirits. People have claimed that they've seen this car driving around Poland, but instead of having mirrors on the side of his car, it had ram horns. The modern version of this urban legend claims that the Black Volga is driven by gang members or thugs who abduct people in order to harvest their organs and then sell them to the rich, Americans or Arabs who suffer from terminal illnesses. So the moral of this story is, if you see a Black Volga, you might want to run for your life because you could be the next victim. The boogeyman tiptoes into number 3 on our list. I think it's safe to say that almost every country has their own variation of the boogeyman. I know for me, the boogeyman, he lives under my bed. I'm not sure what he looks like because I don't dare look underneath there at nighttime. But if you're going to be talking about the Czech Republic's version of this, they refer to their boogeyman as a bubek. That's what they call the boogeyman. He is supposed to look like a terrifying scarecrow and makes chilling sounds of a crying baby in order to lure his unsuspected victim. That's one of the most creepiest things ever. When there's a full moon, he weaves a cloth from the souls of the people that he has stolen, and he drives a cart that is pulled by cats. The bubek's main target is misbehaving children, but he doesn't discriminate. He is it to eat anyone or anything that is foolish enough to cross his path. So I guess what I've learned from this urban legend is to not wander around creepy abandoned places when there is a full moon. I'm gonna do it when there's a half a moon. And if I ever hear a crying baby, I'm just going to run the other way. Okay, not really. The Gryla claws its way into number 2. This horrifying urban legend takes us all the way back over to Iceland. And after you hear about this legend, you probably want to avoid driving to Iceland during Christmas time. And that's because Iceland created a terrifying creature, and this creature is named Gryla, who is a giant troll with hooves for feet and has 13 tails. This creepy looking figure is always in a horrible mood, and she is constantly hungry for children. During each Christmas, Gryla comes out of her cave in order to hunt for misbehaving children. Once she finds them, she stuffs them into her sack, drags them to her cave where she boils them alive and adds their dead corpse to her favorite stew. I mean, what the heck is being taught in Iceland? Just tell your kids to be good. Don't be making up some urban legends crap for them to behave. I bet you this is pretty effective. I bet you everyone in Iceland, all the kids are like so behaved. Okay, the White Death brings us to number 1. I think we've done it again. I think we've saved the best for last here. This is an urban legend that originated in Scotland about a little girl who hated life so much that she wanted to destroy every trace and evidence that showed that she ever existed. I mean, this is some pretty messed up stuff, pretty deep. One day she decided to commit suicide in her bedroom, and shortly after her family found out that she was dead, strange things began to happen. Every family member died within a few days after they discovered her body, except all of their limbs had been torn off. The legends say that when you learn about the White Dead, this little girl's spirit will find you, knock on your door until you answer. Each knock gets louder and louder until you finally open the door. But when you do, she will brutally murder you because she is scared that someone will tell someone else that she exists. So basically this little girl is very sinister and will stop at nothing to prevent people from knowing about her. So I guess we're all kind of screwed now. If you hear knocking at your door tonight, I suggest you guys don't answer. Yeah, I'm pretty freaked out right now.
Starting off this countdown, we have the sarcophagus. Basically, this is a massive steel and concrete structure that covers the Chernobyl power plant. It was designed to help contain the radiation. The construction of the structure lasted for 206 days, and those working on it had to work in shifts of no more than 7 minutes. Any more time spent near the reactors would have killed them. But still, they did sacrifice their lives building this because thousands of workers still died from exposure to the radiation. Those that survived got severely ill, and majority of them developed cancer. Nowadays, the sarcophagus is still there, but it's beginning to crumble. In 2019, they were in the process of dismantling it because it was going to collapse. So a new one is currently being installed. That's probably the scariest thing in Chernobyl because of how deadly the building it's containing is. Coming in at number 9, we have the gas masks. And if you guys are liking this video or want to see part 3, then smash that like button. Chernobyl already looks like the place where an apocalypse occurred. Buildings are completely abandoned, run down, and overgrown with nature. What doesn't help is the piles upon piles of gas masks scattered all throughout Chernobyl. This really adds to the eeriness of this place. And again, makes it look like a place where a zombie or alien takeover occurred. In fact, there is one room inside a school which is just completely filled with child-sized gas masks. It's very creepy, but also sad. Like, imagine how frightened the young children were when this happened. The gas masks found there are just a sad reminder of the horrors that took place there when the reactor exploded. Moving on to number 8, we have the rotting toys. Littered all throughout the city are toys or personal belongings people had to leave behind. The saddest thing to see are pictures of children's toys left behind. Like, I just think that was probably someone's favorite little dolly. Go anywhere there and you'll find items scattered everywhere, now broken and covered in filth. Like, imagine you're rushed out of your home and have to leave behind all your personal belongings. That must have been so hard. I can't imagine how everyone must have felt. It's really depressing to think about. Moving on at number 7, we have the examination chair. So this one is pretty strange, but somehow a gynecologist's examination chair ended up in the middle of the woods outside of a hospital. Not only is that super weird, but it's also super creepy. It's all rusted and beat up and looks like an old torture device. Not only that, but that means someone had to go inside the abandoned hospital, find that chair, and then carry it all the way back down and into the woods. I got a lot of questions. Why would someone do this? And how long did it take them to do this? And again, why would someone do this? Either way, it makes for a very spooky encounter. Moving on at number 6, we have the abandoned cooling tower. A partially constructed cooling tower can be found at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. They were built to evaporate the cooling water from the 2 new reactors. Sadly, they were never completed. Now, these things are massive. The diameter was over 120 meters and it stands at 150 meters tall. Obviously, after the accident, there was no need to continue on with the construction of this, so the government just left the towers there along with everything else. Eventually, over time, nature will have its way with it and it will start to erode and crumble. It's just crazy seeing all these abandoned infrastructures. Imagine how life would have been if that explosion never happened. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the toxic river. There's a river that's just filled with radioactive water right near the reactor. The scariest part is, despite how toxic the water is, a bunch of aquatic life live there. In particular, giant catfish. Yes, giant catfish. A video from 2016 shows a massive catfish swimming in the water. People originally were like, oh my god, what the heck is that? It must be some sort of mutated animal. Later, it was just found out to be a giant catfish. But still, what the heck? And it's the fact that they have adapted to be able to survive in that highly toxic water. Like, that just baffles me. Not only that, but they can thrive there because the water has no higher predators. Obviously though, you're not allowed to go fishing there. Okay, I feel like that's a given, but I also feel like people would still try it, so I'm just gonna say it. Don't go fishing there. In our 4th spot, we have the jarfish. Speaking of fish, we're gonna go with this. So back in 2016, photographer and journalist Miriam Wazer took a trip to explore the ruins of Chernobyl. While inside an abandoned building, she came across something very creepy and odd. She found a bunch of fish and other specimens in jars. Why someone was collecting fish, it just baffles many. And they weren't even like proper beakers or science mason jars. No, it looked like someone emptied out their jar of pickles and then used it to store the specimen. I think it's best if those remain untouched. Like, can you imagine how stinky they would be if they were open nowadays? They would reek. Old stinky fish is not something I would ever want to handle. Now, the other specimen beside the fish are unknown. No one knows what the heck they are. But if you know, let me know in the comments below. Coming in at number 3, we have the abandoned hospitals. The hospitals at Chernobyl are quite eerie. They're just filled with rusted, empty hospital beds, littered syringes, and more. The walls and floors are cracking, and there's dirt and questionable red marks on the floor. I think the saddest thing though is that these hospitals are often trashed with medical supplies just tossed everywhere. The days after the explosion happened, people were frantically rushing to hospitals. Hospital staff were overwhelmed by the amount of people there. This moment is still preserved in the hospitals to this day. It's pretty dark once you think about it. And at number 2 today we have the Sad Alley. The Sad Alley, or the Alley of Memory, is an alley in the Ukraine created in memory of the villages and residents who had to flee from their homes during the disaster. Basically, it's a walkway with signs lining the sides. These signs are names of cities and villages that had to evacuate and leave everything behind. It's a way to ensure we just never forget the impact that this disaster had. It's really sad. And in our number 1 spot today we have the radioactive spiders. Yes, you heard me correctly. Imagine if Peter Parker got bit by one of these bad guys. He'd be like a weirdly mutated Spider-Man or something like that. But anyways, the spiders in the exclusion zone are radioactive. So you definitely don't want to be bit by one. Oh wait, it gets worse. They also make radioactive webs. Yeah, you heard me, that's a thing. So you don't have to just worry about these spiders, but you have to worry about walking through their deadly webs. Like, what the heck? No thank you, nuh-uh. I'm not a fan of spiders, but imagine radioactive ones. That sounds like it belongs in a horror movie. Radioactive, radioactive.